Hi there and welcome. Now, I'm not going to hang about today because there is so much to be done, and to kick off with, we're going straight into it. And the little extension that we did on the last video, got all the joists done. I've given it one coat of the Vallejo, when I reach across, the Vallejo gaming wash, and this is the brown. I've given it one coat of that and just done a light bit of sanding back, so when I put the black on, it's going to catch a few highs and lows. So I've done that, but what we're going to be doing now is we're going to take that off and we're going to do the lath and plaster on that ceiling. Simple reason being is that I want it doing now, so when I actually come to put all my bath suite and everything else in, we can break that ceiling. Where all the debris falls, that's where we will glue it. So we'll go back down to the bench and we'll get on and we'll start with the lath and plaster. So first things first, the first thing we need to do is actually cut some laths. Now these are 0.96 wide. That's old imperial, I'm afraid to say, so the closest you'll get in balsa wood is going to be 1 mil, and this is what we actually want to cut. A thin strip, we will say 1 mil thick by 1.5 wide, and these are going to do our ceiling laths. Now for those who do watch a lot of the videos will probably remember my little lath cutter. Now it's a very simple, straightforward thing. Piece of MDF, 160 long, 100 mil wide, and all I've done is drawn a line across using a square, so I've got a nice straight line, and I've actually glued, to start off with, a piece, I don't know if we can see that, is a piece of styrene which is 3 mil by 3 mil, and then on the front of that I've actually glued a piece of L channel, and that comes in at 1.5 on the inside measurement. So that's what I've glued up, and it's all fixed up, and it's a very simple thing to use. Is that you get your material, this is a piece of balsa wood, we place in like so. I made it 160 so I can actually get my fingers and hold it all the way along, because if you don't hold it all the way along you will cut it in different widths as you go along, because it does sort of rock and roll about a bit, and I can see that bit's gone a bit haywire as well, but not really to worry, because if it is thin one end we can cut it off and just use the centre. Now you need to cut yourself quite a few of those, and I think I know the reason why, because that edge is not that straight, but we'll do that again and just run it along. If you've got a balsa wood strip cutter, even better, because you can just use that to cut your thin strips. We need quite a few of them, and fortunately I had a load already cut, and so I've already used them for the laths on the little roof. Now we'll go across to the little roof because I've already put all the laths on. I didn't think it was worth running through how to glue again, so I've already done it, so we'll have a quick look at that. Okay, this is the roof section, and as you can see, looking through, I've put all the laths on. I'll turn that up just so you can see, and very simple to do. Measure your lath across, cut it so it fits, and then just glue it onto each of the joists, leaving a gap. Well, I use the actual width of a pin between for the gaps. It's not crucial, but, and it doesn't matter if it goes off a little bit, because the bulk of this centre really is going to be smashed out. I'm just looking for the actual outside of this to look authentic. So I've glued them all the way down using the pin as a spacer. Very simple and very straightforward. Now I'm going to run a little bit of an experiment on this, because I'm going to do something a little bit different. Before, I normally use the plasterboard sheets and put over the top of it. This time I'm going to have a bash at putting some filler on it. the fine filler. Now I'm hoping that when I actually put that on, it's going to mushroom up like it does well, like the proper lath and plaster, because the laths were put on and then they plastered over the top of it, and it was the plaster actually being forced through the gaps, mushrooming over the top, that actually held the plaster on the ceiling. So I'm going to try and do that effect using my filler. So we'll do that next, actually. In one take. So what I've done, I've coated the whole surface with a bit of PVA, because putting PVA on something allows plasters and that to stick a lot better. Now all I'm going to try and do, I'm just going to try and plaster it, and just take a bit of my filler and literally smear it across, because what I want is that effect at the back, is where the plaster has come through, and it looks like it might work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the whole lot like so. I will give you a close-up when I've finished, but I'm just trying to get that first lot of plaster through the laths, because that's the way it actually worked. The plaster would go through the laths, mushroom over the top of the laths, and then that would actually hold the ceiling up, would you believe? And it worked for loads of years. I'm probably mumbling now because I've got my head down. I'm not heading towards the microphone, should I say. Right. Yes, I'm happy with that. I will do some close-up pictures for you so you can see, but it's pushed the plaster through. Not quite mushroomed, but that's good enough, I feel. That's good enough. What I'm going to do now is just leave that to dry for a little while, and then I'm going to come across again and just put some over it and just roughly level it, not 100%, because like I say, when it goes on top of the bathroom and I get the bath and that, I'm actually going to smash that through and leave the bits where they fall on top of the bath and the sink and actually glue them in place. So I'm going to leave that to dry, and I shall be back with you in a little while, and then we'll put the final coat on. That coat's had a good chance to dry, well, overnight to be exact. So all we're going to do now is give this like a finish coat, and all I'm going to do is paint. I literally am going to paint it on and float it off using my little floating tool, because it's only the outside really that we have to be, well, fussy about, should I say, because the simple reason is all this middle's going to be broken away. So all I'm going to do is cover this all. I ain't going to bore you by letting you sit through me painting filler on. Oh, go on, I will. So we'll give that a good coating over. And I'm going to do the same sort of technique as what I used on the plaster on the actual house, is just get a coat over the top of it, level it off as best we can, like so. Then once it's dry enough, I will use my little floating tool and just flatten it down, because all I really want is the edges, because that's all that's going to be actually seen. So I'm going to give that a few minutes to go off, because it will take a bit longer on this timber than it did on the actual house, and I'll be back with you in a little while. Now I've been using my little floating tool and just taking off all the highs, leveling it up and getting it sort of reasonably flat. What I shall do is, when it is properly dry, is to get a piece of sandpaper and just go over the top of it just to take anything else off. But it's not mega important, because like I say, we will be smashing the middle out. So that is done. I'm going to leave that to dry, then just play about with a little bit of sandpaper a bit later on. And if we turn it over, Now we're going to move on to putting some battens on the actual roof, some tiles, and doing these gable ends. Okay, first things first, and we're back onto the actual roof now. So the first thing I've got to do is fit a piece of fascia board. Now I've cut a piece of balsa wood. Now this is 3 courses wide, and the reason I've done it 3 courses wide is because we have 2 above, and I'd like the fascia board to cover 1, so that will actually cover that front seam up. And also this piece of balsa wood is slightly thicker than what I would normally use. This is a piece of 1.6. Now I've gone slightly larger to compensate for the plaster sheeting. So when I put that on there, and then we put the plaster sheeting on, it should stick out the right amount. So that's already been cut to length, and I've given it a quick wash. What I should do now is get that glued on, and then we can move on to the tiles. Fascia board glued on, no problems at all. Now our next little step is to actually use some of the slates, and I'm going to glue them along this brick edge here. Now I'm going to keep them in line with that piece of timber, and that will give me just about a 3mm overhang. So I'm going to get on with that. I'm going to start at the bottom, just overhang it a little tiny bit, then run them right up to the top on both sides. So I've glued the slates up either side, as you can see, and I've also glued my first batten on. Now the battens are exactly the same as the laths. It's the 1mm, and it's been cut down to 1.5. Now what we're going to do now is use our slates as a gauge. So what we do is put one slate in there, and I pick the other one up, another slate against that batten, and that batten is glued across the top of the fascia, and all we're going to do is use them as a gauge. Now we'll just glue them up one at a time, using the slates as a spacer, and all I'm going to do now is just glue them all the way up. Now the battens I'll be cutting, as you can see, just slightly short of the end of the slates. This is so they don't actually stick out when we actually put some fill down the side of the actual gable ends. So I'm going to go ahead now and start gluing these on, and I will be back with you very shortly. Now all the battens have been glued on, and my next little job is going to be giving it a black wash, and I'm going to be using the gaming wash, the black, and it's going to be a 50-50 mix. I'm going to dilute it down by 50%. Now I've already been using the brown, and I've been actually, as you can see, is coating the parts as I've been going along. Now the simple reason I've been doing this is because I've been using super glue, because I used the actual strip wood, and I can't use the PVA with it because I can't pin it, because it's quite easy to pin balsa wood to balsa wood, but you can't use the pins on this hardwood. It just doesn't hold. So I've been using the super glue, and I've been putting the wash on the parts so we don't get them white stains afterwards. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to crack on, and I'm going to give this all a coat of the black, and when I've done that I'll come back to you. Everything's had a wash. I've actually given it 2 coats actually, because I did do the first coat, wasn't quite dark enough, so I gave it another coat. And we're going to move on with the tiles now. Well, slates should I say, not tiles. I'm going to start in this corner just here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue them all the way along the bottom, and then I'm going to sort of stagger them up to about that point there, and then I'm going to bring them across the top, because the roof, this part of the roof would have been sheltered by the gutter and the soffit and that, so our damage is mainly going to be down this bottom area. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to be using some PVA with a little bit of black paint mixed in with it, just to give it that edge when we start to do the final weathering. And I'm going to start from that bottom corner, and it's going to be a matter of just putting some PVA on along the timber. Get your tweezers and a little tile, slate, and then we're just going to glue them on like that. Now I'm using PVA because PVA does give you a little time to actually get things lined up where the super glue won't. Like so, make sure that's level with the edge. Yep. So I'm going to carry on now. I'm going to run all the way across the bottom and I'll start tearing up, but I will come back to you in a little while and you can see what's happening. Now I've tiled up both sides. I know it's very uniformed at the moment, but we will deal with that a bit later on. Now for the cuts, I've left the actual full tile overhanging the edge, and what I will do a bit later on when it dries out is to get a piece of sandpaper on a little block and just rub that down, and it won't take many passes to actually bring that down. I do it that way because I find that when you try and cut these down long ways, they've got a tendency of just breaking all over the place. So it's a little bit quicker and easier, and it saves a lot of tiles, to be quite honest with you. So I'll be doing that a bit later on. I've got both sides up, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this course here right the way across and another full course on top, which I will be sanding down. So I'll get on with that now. I'll get this course running and the top course, and when I've done it I'll come back to you. So the two top courses are on, and yes, I know it still looks very uniform, but we will sort that out a bit later. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this to one side to dry, and I'm going to leave it for at least a day and a half so I can actually get these edges sanded down and this top edge sanded back as well, because we're going to need to put lead flash in against this wall. In the meantime, while we're waiting for that to dry off and we can get that sanded back, I'm going to drop down to the bottom half here and we're going to put a window in. Now we're going to put a bathroom window in, and because I still haven't got my bath, my toilet and my sink, I've sort of done a little bit of estimating. We're going to have the bath this side, we're going to have the toilet this side, and we're going to have the window and the sink underneath the window. Now I'm trying to get as large a window as I can possibly get without making it look too stupid, because I do want when you actually view it, you can actually see through this window and see what's going on inside as well as from the top. So I've drawn my lines and I've marked out where I would like my window. So what I'm going to do now is transfer these marks over to the face side, and we'll get on and we'll get this cut out. Now I've transferred all my marks over, and I'm going to try and do it with my little Timir saw. Now I'm going to start on the weakest part, which is going to be these two courses at the top. I'll get that cut done first, and then hopefully I won't break that bit. And it's just a matter of, with this saw, is trying to cut right the way through, and you can actually do it. I know this will take a bit of time. Slowly but surely. There we go, we're all the way through. So all we need to do now is just, when we can get right the way through, just try and get the blade. I've got the wrong blade on this. I've got another little blade that's quite narrow, and we'll turn that round and we'll start from that side. I'm not going to bore you by doing it, showing you how I do it the whole lot, but just so you can get a general idea that this little saw is quite good. And we're almost through. Well, we are through actually. We've just got to open this up. As you can see, there's just a little bit in the middle there that's stopping me from going all the way through. So and once you get all the way through, then you can try and just work your way in. And if you keep to the brick joints, it don't show, because you can grab that bit in. I think we might have to do a little bit of opening up with the scalpel. And that's my first cut. I think I could do with a new blade on this. If anyone knows where you can get the Tamiya saw blades from, let me know, because I've been looking for them for a long time. You don't seem to find them. You can actually buy the saws, but not the spare blades for some strange reason. I'm quite happy with that. If I try and do it anymore, it's going to break. Now I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm going to work my way down this side and this side, and the same with the bottom, and hopefully that should fall out. Now I'm going to go off camera because the simple reason is the camera is right in my way and it's just making it difficult for me to do. Okay, the hole is cut, and a little word about keeping your tools clean. I thought to myself I was struggling quite a bit trying to get through that first cut, and when I checked my saw I had the tiniest bit of super glue at the end, which was slowing me down. Well, actually it was larger than the saw cut. Once I removed it, that just fell out. Well, literally just fell out after I'd finished cutting it, but it flew through it a lot easier. Now my next step is to actually start getting some plaster sheet on the outside, but I think it would be rather rude if I didn't do the plaster sheeting on the inside. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the plaster sheeting on the inside, also the plaster sheeting on this piece here, so the inside is ready just to take the bath and the sink and to do the damage on the roof. So that's what I'm going to get started on now. I'm going to go and get some plaster sheets and we'll get all this faced up. So now I've boarded the inside out, and we're going to go off course a little bit here because I've just started casting out materials for the next build, and I happen to start casting these out, and these are standard clay square, well not square tiles, but roof tiles. And I did a couple of casts and I thought to myself, I've got a use for these, so I've cast some out in white and I'm going to use them as tiles in this bathroom. Now I've casted some white ones out and I've also casted some grey ones. I really wanted black, but when you mix black pigment with the white powder you always end up getting grey, so they will have to do. I might even go around with some black paint later and touch them in, but it's going to be very simple. What I'm going to do is run a dark course all the way along the bottom of the bathroom, and then on top of that staggered joint I'm going to be running the little white ones. Now I've already drawn a line all the way round, which is going to be roughly the height where I finish at with the tiles, and then I'm going to pick some extremely gory wallpaper to go on the top. So when I've done this, all that inside will be finished, so I can actually attach this to the house, and when my bath, toilet and sink come up I can just place them in, glue them in, and the inside's finished, ready to smash through and get the debris in its position. So that's what I'm going to do. I know I'm skirting off a little bit because I did say I weren't going to do no more work on the inside, but I think it's the most sensible thing to do. So I'm going to get on with this, but I will keep popping back to you, and I'll get all the bottom course in first and a few courses of the white, and I'll come back and you can have a little look, and hopefully we can get this inside wrapped up. That's 1.5 sides done. Let's say them little bits that you can see sticking out that like little dimples, they're actually the hanging nibs on the actual tile. I've put them facing out so I can just get a sanding stick and go over the top of them. It's not fantastic, but it's pretty good. It will do, because the amount you're actually going to see of the inside of this is very minimal, and I think I'm going a little bit overboard, but I feel it's worth it. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to carry on down the far side here and the actual back wall of the house. I shall get that all tiled in. When I've got all that done, I'll come back to you and we'll look at getting a bit of gory wallpaper and sticking it above the top here, just to finish it off. All the tiling has been complete, and if I just move that bit away, as you can see, I've done the back wall, and if we turn that round, all the inside has been done. Now, like I said, I'm quite happy with that. It's going to be quite sufficient for what you're actually going to see. So I know I'm going to do a little bit over the top, but we're going to stick some gory wallpaper on the top of that. Bring it into shot. That's the gory wallpaper, and all I'm going to do is just cut that bit of PVA and glue that on. What else? Well, while I've got this open, I'm going to put this frame in. It's going to be nothing too mad. All I'm going to do is cut a sill and some uprights and just actually glue it in place, because there's going to be nothing there at all, because I want it totally open with no obstructions. So I'm going to get on with that, and I'll be back with you shortly. Now, so many jobs and not really enough time to actually show you everything, but I've completed the wallpaper in the back, which I will turn it around in a second and show you. But what I've done at the front here, I've come down 2 courses either side and cut this front section out. This is to take a sill, which is just a piece of lintel or whatever you want to call it, which I'm going to just put in there like so, just to match in the rest of the building. I am going to be making a frame to go in there, and I'm going to be using offcuts. When I get into shot, I'm going to be using some offcuts. This is 1.6 by 3.6, and they are literally bits that I've been using on other projects. They're offcuts, so they will do the job, and I'm literally just going to make a frame just to sit inside there and glue that in. That will be the window finished virtually by a coat of green paint. Now we'll just turn it round. As you can see, the back wall's been papered and all the inside. Not much left in here to do. Once I get the window in, I will put a little sill board on the inside and just tidy up around the inside of the window, and that will be it, and that will be completed totally inside. Then when my bath and my toilet and sink come, it just means of gluing them in place and the job is done. Now there's other jobs to be done. I've just got to do a little bit of fettling and get that glued to that wall, which I won't bother videoing that because it's only fettling. And what I also need to do is cut the rest of this plaster out and get the actual roof seated in so it sits in nice and neatly. All them jobs I'll be doing, because they're all small little jobs. They're all important though, but they all need to be done. And I'm actually running out of time now, because I think this video has gone on for ages on just the one subject. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to end this video, but when you come back on the next one, all these little bits will be done, finished off with, and we'll be doing something a little bit different, hopefully. So all I can do now is say thank you very much for joining me, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one. Until then.